Hello, everyone. I'm Mimi Lichtenstein, and today on Adventures in Luxury Travel, we are talking about Australia, the other side of the world from the US. And happily today, I have in my friend Drew Kluska, who very kindly woke up early to speak with us today. I think it's about 7:30 for him, 4
Yeah.
o'clock here in the States for me. Welcome to the show, Drew. Thanks for coming.
Well, thank you, Mimi. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here this morning or your afternoon.
Yes. Well, you and I both love Australia. You live there. You know so much more about it than I do. I will touch on a little bit your background. You have a very varied background, including working at some safari lodges in Africa. So not only do you know Australia well, you and I have a shared love of active, adventurous, really cool, different kinds of experiences, wildlife, and all of that. So I'm excited to pick your brain today.
Yeah, no, it's going to be fun.
Okay, good. Okay, let's start with, I'm going to bring on a map as we usually do so everybody can get a good overview of what the country looks like and how big it is. I love this map that you had layering on the US. Tell us a little bit about the different areas and the highlights.
Okay, so basically you can split Australia, north-south into three different sections. So if you see up the top there, Cairns, Darwin, Broome, can you see that and use your cursor?
Yep. There we go.
Yeah, so across the top there, that's all the tropics. Okay, so you've got the wet season or the monsoon and the dry season. So the monsoon will run from November, December through to March, and then April through to October is generally the dry season. So most people visit that time of the year between sort of April and sort of September, October
Okay.
before it gets too hot and 100% humidity. So, but there's always somewhere great. So through the center, you will see, if you see the line between the Northern Territory and South Australia, right in that center is everything you've seen about Australia with the red sand and the outback and Uluru, and then to the south, to the north. To the
It's
west,
early.
directly west, where you've got Western Australia there. That is basically, if you go to the coast, that's Ningaloo, the big reef system there where the whale sharks come, and
Mm-hmm.
then if you go to Brisbane, Sydney, it's very, very sort of like subtropical there. So then as you go further south and you get from Melbourne to Adelaide to Perth, you get into more Mediterranean. So it's very, very Mediterranean in those parts of Australia. So you've got your four seasons. And then as you go further south to Tasmania, it's almost like New Zealand or parts of Europe. So, yeah, like we've got every single environment in Australia, and it's always somewhere great to visit, no matter what the time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love this map. This map really shows, um, how big Australia is comparative to Europe and the UK. I think Australia fits in 33 and a third times the UK would fit into Australia.
33 and a third times. Wow. Yeah. So it just gives you a good idea what the perspective is of driving, for example, or if somebody was to take even an airplane from Sydney over to Perth. It's like crossing the United States.
Yeah,
It's
yeah. Like Sydney to Perth is like 6 hours. So, but if you what's very interesting about Australia is we have a population of about 24 million. So if you look between Brisbane and Melbourne, right? So you can see between Brisbane and Melbourne, you've got 80% plus of the population live in that pocket.
which
Right.
leaves, I was going to say, which leaves a lot of this without any population.
Yeah. So, right along the coastline. I mean, if you think about Australia, and what is incredible is the fact that we have so much untouched wilderness, like just millions and millions and millions of acres.
Well, I think part of the fun for people like us going over there is that it is so outdoorsy and so adventurous, and there's so much to explore. So let's dive into some of our favorite experiences. When you and I were preparing for today, I love it because, again, you and I have a very good meeting of the minds. We both like doing really cool things in cool places and meeting cool people. This is a iconic, classic Sydney picture of the Opera House at nighttime. Absolutely stunning. I know, and maybe give us a little insight. You could, of course, go on a boat and just cruise around it. You could see it from land, but you also have some exclusive experiences for people to go in and see it from the inside, right?
Yeah, I mean, we can do curated experiences, where you can go into, things called the Utzon Room, and Utzon was the famous architect that designed it, and you can go backstage and meet some of the actors. You can really get under the skin of the property and really get an incredible experience. I mean, the other great thing is there's just right in the foreground, there's an incredible restaurant there called Benelong as well. So you can literally eat under one of the sails and look over the harbour bridge. I mean, it is so iconic. And look, I know it's one of those bucket list items that everybody wants to tick off, but this one's definitely worth doing, and we will curate the experiences so you can really get behind the scenes and understand how it's built. And it took, like, I think the budget overrun was 10 times what they expected to spend. And it took like a decade longer than expected to build. So
when did it finish? When was the build finished?
Oh, sometime in the 60s, yeah.
Yeah. So my first time there was in 1992, and it was there then. I don't know if Benelong was there, but at that time, I definitely didn't have the budget probably to eat there. We will have a photo of that. We'll have a photo of that later on, and it's absolutely stunning. So definitely something to put on the list. And then another of the big classic places, the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, so the Great Barrier Reef, it's one of the wonders of the earth that you can see from the moon, right? So it's actually 1,250 miles long.
Wow.
So it is large. So it runs from the tip of Cape York, so that's the very most northern part of the east coast of Australia, right 1,250 miles south, almost to Brisbane. So, basically, yeah, I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. And what makes it even more incredible is the fact that no matter where you go, you can be there by yourself, like absolutely untouched. You can go to parts of the reef where that hardly a human has ever been, even though it's wildly popular. So
yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things you really have to do, and if you can get in the air and see it, it's really worthwhile.
Yeah, that's on my list for the next time I go back. I will say the first time I went scuba diving was at Michaelmas Cay and Hastings Reef.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was
That's
my
new
first time.
information.
And we did a boat trip around the Whitsunday Islands, which was stunning because, like you said, there's miles and miles of white sand beaches with nobody on them. I mean, it's just completely deserted. So, and this is a beautiful photo. I love this. So this is also at the reef, and it's just people out there stand-up paddleboarding, but it looks like you're in a bathtub. The water is so clear.
Yeah, so this one's actually at Lizard Island. This photo is from our book, and Lizard Island is absolutely amazing because most people don't realize the reef is actually about a 2-hour boat trip from the land.
Yeah.
So one of the great things about Lizard Island is you are stationed right in the middle of the Great Barrier Reef, so you can literally snorkel off the beach and be amongst it. So yeah, it's absolutely fabulous, and yeah, it's a beautiful spot. I take my family there. Oh, this one, I absolutely love this one. This one, the gentleman in the middle is an NFL player called Larry Fitzgerald. Now, I'm not huge into NFL, but I do remember this gentleman's name because I actually now know he's quite famous. But the guy holding his thumb up on the right is a famous Australian adventurer. In fact, he was voted in the top 50 adventurers of all time. So this guy was an accountant. He's like, oh, goodness, life is too boring, right? I need to really stretch myself. So he's got a number of world, Guinness World Records. But the one he's most famous for is that he went to the shoreline of Antarctica and he walked unassisted from the shore to the South Pole and back over. I don't know how long it took, but it was weeks, right?
Wow.
And the guy does these incredible experiences. Here you can see he's canyoning and he does abseiling and rappelling and hiking. But he's a very famous speaker because he's just so motivational, right? And we had some Silicon Valley people out there, famous Silicon Valley people out there with him. And they just said, like, it was one of the best experiences of our lives. But as you know, Mimi, what takes a trip from good to great is the people that you meet along the way.
For sure.
And, James is inspiring, to say the least.
And you know what? When you're around people like that, or you're listening to people like that through an official motivational speech, or just having a conversation with them, it's bound to rub off on you. So it's like you're going to leave that conversation going home more motivated to do something, outside your comfort zone or tackle some big obstacle. And I love that.
Yeah.
All right. This one. Rib boats, those are a favorite of mine. Here's a picture of Sydney Harbor, or somewhere around Sydney, with a huge whale flying through the air next to a rib boat. I'm sure those people were extremely excited that this happened so close to them. Have you taken your kids out on one of these?
Yeah, in fact, we love this boat. It's called Ocean Extreme. We use it a lot, and we use it on a private basis. So what's so amazing about this is I think it has 300 horsepower motors. So not only can you have the adrenaline of the ride, you can get out through the heads and out to where the whales are in literally minutes. But we use it to get to private beaches very quickly, and incredible picnic setup, or for thrill rides along the coast. And the whales migrate all up and down the coast, the humpbacks, the southern right whales. So, between, I think it's May and October is the main period where you can see whales there regularly. But these guys do an absolutely fantastic job. Just one of the best experiences ever, and especially if you're looking you've got a family and you're looking for a bit of adrenaline.
Oh, yeah. Which is typically what my clients like. And these aren't the only whales you can see. There's other places you can go see the killer whales, and you can go swim with whale sharks. So there's a lot of great, amazing wildlife experiences. And we haven't even talked about kangaroos and koala bears yet.
Like you've got the Bremer Trench where you can see the orcas or killer whales. You've got southern Australia where the southern rights come. Then you've got the blue whales and the humpbacks. In fact, you can even on Ningaloo swim with humpbacks. Yeah. So, amazing. I saw a blue whale. Probably would be November 2017 now. And I must admit, I am not huge into whale watching, right? Like, because okay, we drive around and you see a spurt every now and again. But down off of the bottom of Western Australia, we would have seen 100 whales in an hour, and they were huge.
Amazing.
Anyway, so we can customize to whatever you want, Mimi. Like here we have barramundi fishing, which is the equivalent of our bass. So, but of course, like everything, it's bigger in Australia.
That's a good one. That's huge. That looks way bigger than any fish I caught in Alaska this summer.
Yeah, it's called a barramundi.
I've heard of them. And then we go to the opposite extreme, where I love this. You and I, when we were working on an itinerary last year, we're talking about fast cars and driving fast cars around Adelaide. And this is just an example of a couple of them. And you might know off the top of your head, but I have written in my notes Ferraris, Lamborghinis, McLarens, Mercedes, C63S, 63S, whatever that is. I don't know car models, but how fun would that be to just drive around these big windy roads through the mountains?
Yeah, this company called Prancing Horse, they do such a fabulous job at curating the experiences. And we've had many people actually go out with these guys where the car's delivered. Like I remember on Boxing Day. I'm not sure if you call the 26th of December Boxing Day, do you?
We do not. No.
So Boxing Day, it's an English thing. Afterwards you put all the boxes away after Christmas, so that's why it's called Boxing Day. But it's not like this. But it's more about putting. But we will have them delivered to wherever you're staying, so that you can maybe go for an incredible cruise through the Barossa Valley or along the coast south of Sydney. The Great Ocean Road, wherever you wish to go, we can customize it to suit.
Love it. And then back in Sydney, I love this photo of the bridge climb. So you can actually go climbing up on the bridge over the Sydney Harbor, looking down upon the Opera House. How stunning would those views be?
Yeah. Like I have to admit that although this is very touristy,
Yeah.
and a lot of people do the bridge climb, we can actually do it on a private basis. And we're very good friends with the people at Bridge Climb. And this is quite dear to me because I thought to myself, I actually arranged a private bridge climb and took my wife up there, and I proposed to her on the top of the bridge because I figured that if she said no, I could just push her off.
Clearly she said yes.
Yeah. She was very scared that I pushed her off, so she felt that she had no choice but to say yes. But I do love the bridge climb. I have like 3 or 4 things that you have to do in Sydney. One is the bridge climb. One is obviously a private behind the scenes at the Opera House and sail on the harbour at sunset. They're really, really cool things to do. But you need to deliver them in such a way that for example, if you do the normal bridge climb with everyone else, it'll take 4 hours. We do an express version, on a private basis, and you know what, you get all the highlights and you don't have to waste all the time. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, the next one wasn't on your list, but I saw a picture of it years ago, and it's on my list for the next time I come. This amazing swimming pool.
Yeah, this is Bondi icebergs, right? So the ocean, this is an ocean pool, and it fills up and drains with the tide. And actually, if you look at the top story, there's a very famous restaurant there, also by the same name, Bondi Icebergs. But you don't get much more iconic than this. I remember that there was a big trade show in Australia around luxury travel, and we walked into Bondi, and I reckon, I saw 7 American agents sitting in there having lunch. So I was like, wow, everybody wants the same spot. But it is absolutely beautiful and so iconic. And
so iconic.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so Australian. I mean, people go there and swim in the ocean pool, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, there's just so many amazing things to do there. The key is that people need to know people like you and people like me to help them even know what's possible to do, because some of these things aren't as well known.
Yeah. I mean, I let me say something more on that, Mimi. I mean, what I think, people, what you do so well is, you take people's time and you elevate it, right? You take it to a new level. You think about life and how valuable holidays are for families, right? So why do you work? You work so that you can do things with your family, or the things that you love, or the people that you love most in your life. So what better gift to give than make that time truly special? Because if you make that time truly special, what have you built? You've built memories, which is what life is all about. So, you think about people sometimes dismiss the role or say, well, I can organize that online. But tell me, if you've had the best holiday of your life, or vacation as you would call it, and someone like Mimi has put it together and elevated that experience and you've created lifelong memories. I mean, I would argue in many times that it's probably the most important time that you could possibly spend.
Well, of course, you and I are on complete agreement in that respect. Okay, moving on to a few critters before we'll talk about wildlife a little later, but I love this. Some amazing photos of one very large alligator.
It's a crocodile.
Crocodile, I
Saltwater
guess.
crocodile.
Crocodile.
So
Oh yeah, Crocodile Dundee. Of course it's a crocodile.
yeah, so this guy is a gentleman called Matt Wright. He's actually got his own show on National Geographic called Outback Wrangler. And he does an amazing job. This crocodile is actually called Cyclops because it's only got 3 legs. Oh. And so it here, he takes people on these incredible helicopter safaris through the top end, where they go foraging for crocodile eggs, right? To then sell back to the farms, and they go barramundi fishing, and they go checking crocodile traps and removing. I mean, it is extreme. So these are some of the more extreme things we can do. So the next picture above is called, to the right with that crazy buggy, is wild bull mustering. So, this is something, obviously because I come off a big ranch in Australia and studied agriculture. So I went to boarding school and agricultural university with a lot of these people. So we this is something we've organized. I remember we had the guy who was the founder of Sun Microsystems, and he was in one of these buggies doing wild bull catching, and his EA wrote to me, and he also wrote to me and said, "This is possibly the craziest thing I have ever done in my life, but I will never, ever forget it." So you get these bulls that, because the properties are big, some of them are 1 million acres, and you have to get rid of the bad genetics. So you have to go and catch these wild bulls that may never have seen a human for a decade, right? So they flush them out with helicopters, and then they catch that. There's actually a mechanical arm that comes off the side of that buggy, and they catch them. Yeah.
Wow.
So down to the bottom left is diving with the great white sharks. And this is in Port Lincoln, South Australia, at the Neptune Islands. And they say that this is in the top 2 spots in the world, or 3. It's probably South Africa, Guadalupe, and here in Australia. So this is one of the huge migratory paths. And this is only actually about 20 kilometers from where I grew up as a child. And, we were very, very nervous about going too deep in the water because there were so many great white sharks. So, yeah.
Understand.
And then this is a motorbike safari, this one, and it's with ex-Formula One F500 motorbike rider Daryl Beatty, who actually came, I think he was 2nd or 3rd in the world championships in the early 90s. So he does these incredible motorbike safaris up a place called the Canning Stock Route, and just incredible. We used him, and they do a fantastic job. But these are the kind of things, Mimi and I have chatted about, and that she can deliver at Trouvé because that she has these connections. Like the things that you would never see on Google or find in a brochure that can truly elevate that experience.
And what's fun about working with you actually is when I come with very, very specific things that someone loves, is there's plenty of things that haven't been written yet, right? They're not out there. It's just a matter of making them up based on what somebody's interested in. And we find cool things for them to do. And that's always super fun. And then for a few more relaxing pursuits, you can do lots of yoga in Australia. It's a very wellness focused country, and doing yoga on a beach in the Whitsundays or under a platform at Lizard Island or something like that would just be a magical way to start or end your day for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
And the sunsets, right? And the sunrises, you get both, and they're so spectacular there.
I love this shot. This is actually from our book. This is El Questro, but sitting on this gorge, in the middle of the Kimberley, that probably apart from the photographer, this guide would be the only person for maybe 50 miles. Maybe even further. One of the great facts about Australia is they discovered an indigenous tribe, I think it was about 1982, in the Great Sandy Desert, that didn't even realize that, that the Europeans had come to Australia. Like, it was like the lost Amazonian tribe. Like, how can that happen, I remember hearing it on the radio as, I would have been 10. And I remember hearing it, and it was all over the news. And so they just walked out of the desert in 1982. Incredible.
Amazing. More gorgeous sunsets and stargazing. What I love about Central Australia in particular, right? There's not a lot of light pollution. There's no light pollution. And so, right, the stars and the magical.
This is a very interesting story in itself. You see the boab tree, or as many people in the US say, baobab. So, you find these in Southern Africa, the Kalahari, Madagascar, but they're only found in the Kimberley. And there's this special type of rock art that they find in the Kimberley, and it's almost identical to that you find in sub-Saharan Africa, right?
Really?
And it only appears where the boab trees are. So, and it's completely different. It's like black and white between the different types of Aboriginal art. So, the Aboriginals say, we don't know who did it. Well, now they claim it. But, I think that it's very obvious that there was, people came across from Southern Africa. The other thing is there's a very famous astronomer here they called him Space Gandalf in that series on the interplanets and on the planetary systems, that BBC documentary, and doing night vision with him is incredible. So this is some Aboriginal rock art from in Arnhem Land. And think about this. Kakadu, which is one of our national parks, is the third largest national park in the world. And there's an Aboriginal reserve there called Arnhem Land. Well, Arnhem Land is 5 times the size of Kakadu. And, it's been, it's in Aboriginal control and has been for decades and decades. And there's literally maybe 10,000 people, maybe 5,000 people live in there. And some of this rock art, goes back 40,000 years, like stuff that has been extinct in Australia extinct in that part of Australia, like Tasmanian tigers. And you can see where they've obviously interacted with the mocassins from Indonesia and all of that. Just incredible. And the rock art galleries, you walk in there and you're just like, oh my God. They talk about rock art, in different parts of Europe. This is just mind-blowing. There's literally, it's like a gallery, and you can trace Australia's roots through these galleries.
Yeah. Amazing. And, obviously you guys have a long history of Aboriginals in your country and a lot of cultural and historical places to visit or people to talk with, to learn about those cultures. I think that for people who are coming there and they want it to also be not just, outdoorsy and fun, but educational, there's so much that you can learn through the Aboriginal, the works of art. Rock art.
The Australian, indigenous population, the Australian Aboriginal people, they're the longest surviving human race on Earth.
Oh,
wow. These guys go back. Occupation in Australia, minimum 60,000 years.
Wow.
Yeah. It is mind-blowing. Like, Australia was like Europe. Like there was about 129 different, 149 different clans. It was broken up, and they're all with their own distinct languages and
Wow.
customs. Yeah.
And you know what, too? I think another item that you and I talked about on our itinerary last year was on Kangaroo Island, going around with local people to learn about how they live down there, just a little bit more contemporary, culture and history. Um, but just getting a really good understanding of how local farmers, live their lives, and how the beekeepers, take care of their things. It's just a lot of farming, agriculture, history. It's just, an amazing, diverse place to be able to go see.
Yeah, I mean, those people to people experiences, because generally, and I think you would agree with this, people that are taking this kind of holiday are generally, A-type personality. So they want to be with interesting people that they can learn from. And
Yeah.
you have a great memory, Mimi, because, you cover every country in the world. And to remember that Kangaroo Island had the Ligurian bee, and it's the only pure strain of that Italian Ligurian bee left in the world is on Kangaroo Island. And yeah,
That
we take people to these sheep dairies and abalone farms, and people producing really fine wool merinos that are used in Armani suits, and yeah, it's incredible. And here you can see a very, very dark, I would say it would be a Chardonnay or something like that, that's been, fermented for, well, aged for quite a long time. But the Barossa Valley, I mean, the food and wine is fantastic. I mean, you probably heard of places like Henschke and the Penfolds Grange and the Torbreck Laird. Because I went to Australia's leading agricultural and winemaking university, a lot of the people that are now the owners of these famous vineyards, or the chief winemaker or the chief viticulturalist, are people that I went to university with. So our access into the wine regions is just unrivaled. Like I know that nobody can beat us on that stuff.
No, that's why I like you. Well, one of the reasons I like you. All right. Let's transition back to one of our favorite topics, on at least Americans' favorite topics, on Australia, and that is wildlife, including kangaroos and wallabies, which you pointed out earlier. We don't even know what a wallaby looks like, which is probably true for most of us. But seeing all these animals, whether it be in the wild or at a sanctuary, or learning about them and the conservation efforts, tell us a little bit about some of those things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things is, we have very different wildlife from the rest of the world, like incredibly different, because we've been cut off for so long. But for example, with the kangaroos and wallabies, there's 36 different types of kangaroos and wallabies. People don't realize that. There's ones adapted to the hills, there's ones to the mountains, there's ones adapted to the plains, there's ones adapted to the thick bush. There's all different types. And wallabies are basically a small version of a kangaroo. Some of them are literally only that big, right up to your 6.5, 7-foot red kangaroo.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the population, much like your deer in North America, have exploded now that they have pastures and water and things like that. So, I mean, there's no lack of kangaroos, that's for sure. And the koalas, I mean, koalas, they suffered a lot with the bushfires, but they're certainly making a recovery. But I love to show people wildlife in the wild, because the first thing I did when I started the company, I think 24 years ago, was saying, okay, I want to show people Australian wildlife in its natural state, right? Because then you just appreciate it more, So that's one of the big things we're on about.
Yeah, I love
it. Here's swimming with Australian sea lions, which are highly endangered in the southern part of Australia. So, I mean, again, there's huge, like everywhere in the world, people are rewilding, really taking care of the native environment, natural environment, huge conservation efforts, you know.
And by the way, this shot and the one with the whale shark, I took my kids to Baja California, to Cabo 2 years ago, and we swam with both of those. And my teenagers absolutely loved it. The sea lions were so playful, and the
Yeah.
whale sharks are so big, and they actually swim quite a bit faster than you might anticipate. So you have to try and keep up with them. Um, but two amazing experiences where you're right next to wildlife. You know, they're just swimming by you and interacting around you, and it's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, we've got two great places to swim with whale sharks here in Australia. Ningaloo. Most people don't realise that on the Western Australian coast is another reef almost as big as the Barrier Reef called the Ningaloo Reef, right? I mean, it is just so untouched. I was there about maybe like 6 or 7 weeks ago, and it is just so untouched. And the other place is Christmas Island, yeah. And
Oh,
of
yeah.
course,
We'll talk about that in a minute.
the ubiquitous saltwater crocodile. Yeah, so
I
up in the north of Australia, I mean, these were hunted to the brink of extinction, but now, like, they are literally everywhere, back to, you know, pre-European numbers.
Wow. And this little guy is so adorable and cute. Tell us about him.
This is an echidna, and it's one of only two egg-laying mammals in the world, the other being a platypus. And you know, they eat ants. And we have the world expert, Dr. Peggy Rismiller, on Kangaroo Island, and we very, very often take people out with her. That's something that we've really pioneered with a company called Exceptional Kangaroo Island, you know, and people just find it fascinating finding the whole history. I mean, she's the David Attenborough of echidnas, yeah.
Well, he's so tiny and prickly. How big are these?
Oh, they're like that big, yeah.
Oh, they're pretty big. Okay.
So when you get a baby, it's called a puggle.
Wow.
Puggle. These little tiny things, yeah.
So cute. Well, it looks like it would be like stepping on a sea urchin, so you definitely don't want to do that.
They're actually very soft. Yeah, I mean they look worse than they are. Yeah.
Okay, good to
And
know.
they call up into a big ball if they're threatened. Yeah.
All right, off the beaten path. I sort of joked with you ahead of time saying like everywhere in Australia is off the beaten path other than the big cities, but not so. We're going to talk about a few places. Tasmania, I didn't make it there when I was in Australia, but you know, looking at this picture of this gorgeous blue cove with beautiful white sand certainly makes me want to go there. How many people who are coming to Australia from the US add Tasmania onto their itinerary, would you say?
I would say a decade ago, literally no one. But now I would say maybe like 30%. I mean, it is just so untouched. This is a place called Wineglass Bay. Was I think about 7, 8 years ago voted the best beach in the world.
Wow.
It's just absolutely stunning. But the hiking, the nature, I think in Tasmania there's only maybe a population of 400,000-500,000 people, and something like 40% of it is untouched wilderness. In fact, in the southeast part of Tasmania, they say that it is the purest air in the world because it drafts up from Antarctica and it is just untouched. So here we've obviously got Uluru in Central Australia.
Which, as you know, Americans know more by the name of Ayers Rock.
Ayers Rock, yes.
And if you go and stay at the One and Only out there, you'll see it from the One and Only, which would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's the place to go. Longitude 131 is definitely the place to stay.
Oh, is it? Oh, sorry, I mixed them up. Thank you for correcting me. All right,
I didn't correct you. You corrected yourself.
All right, this one, the crabs. Tell us a little bit about this, which has been called, I think David Attenborough also had some expression for all these crabs on Christmas Island.
Yeah, he said it was in the top 5 greatest migrations in the world. And I mean, I've only recently, and I'm talking like 8 weeks ago, went to Christmas Island because it is remote. It's like 5 hours by plane from Perth, which is the remotest capital city in the world, right? It is like really, really remote. But again, I mean, just incredible, these red crabs that migrate from the ocean up onto the mainland and onto this island to breed. And also there's just incredible whale sharks here as well. But I mean, if you're looking for destinations that are just far off the beaten path, you're actually closer to Indonesia than you are Australia to go and visit Christmas Island.
Really? Well, for those of you who are listening and not looking at the photo, it's definitely worth going to look at the photo. There's a guy who is bicycle riding down a path, and there's probably 1,000 red crabs crossing the path in front of him. I'm not sure who this guy is who thought to go bike ride down the path with all these crabs. It seems a little treacherous.
Yeah, well, for the crabs.
Well, for the crabs and the guy, in case he falls off. I don't think I'd want to be him. And then this is a beautiful photo of from above, and the red that you see on the beach here are all crabs.
Yeah.
Amazing. Okay, exclusive and over the top ideas. Between you and I, we have a lot. You come with a lot, and I can come up with a lot. And between the two of us, I know we can come up with some really good over the top ideas. One of them that you brought to my attention that I absolutely love is the pearls. So tell us a little bit about this experience.
Yeah, this is amazing. So the Pasbailey family in Australia have been farming pearls for like 4 generations, and they only produce like maybe like 1 or 2% of the world's pearls, but it makes up like more like something like 52% of the value of all pearls sold globally.
Wow.
0.4, like, and they have this showroom in Sydney, one marketplace, Sydney, and underneath this showroom is an old bank vault, and you go down there with the family, and they literally pull out hundreds of millions of dollars of pearls, and they actually showed me the biggest pearl ever created in human history. I mean, you got these 5 Japanese guys, because I didn't realize all pearls are graded manually by hand, right? And they put this one strand of pearls together that is so perfect. It took them 18 years to get the pearls required for one necklace. And I mean, these things are so rare and so untouched. I mean, like, you would have all heard of the De Beers diamonds, right? They're going to me like, you know what? There's a lot more diamonds than you think. But these things, we have to grow them. They take, and also we can actually go and visit. I mean, it's amazing. So we've organized exclusively to take our clients down in Sydney or Darwin or Broome, or we can even take them out by seaplane to the farm in the Kimberley. But I remember I brought a client out, and they're going, I don't want to go and see pearls. I am not even interested in pearls. I just said, trust me, give me an hour of your time. 3 hours later, I had to pull them out of there. They're like, this is probably one of the best things I've ever done, because you go through the oldest elevator in Australia down to this bank vault, and there you've got these 5 little Japanese guys who are the best pearl graders on the planet going through these pearls, and then the family, the oldest, pearl producing family in the world with the most pristine pearls. And it is just fascinating. I mean, trust me, I'm not into pearls, but every time I do it, I go, this is just amazing.
Well, I think when you meet somebody who is so immersed in what they do and so passionate about what they do, you can't help but be brought into that, right?
Yeah, drawn up in the excitement. Yeah.
Yeah. And then if you buy some pearls, that'd be the perfect thing to then wear to your white party that you might have on your yacht running around the Lizard Island or the Whitsundays or something.
I mean, I love this idea. I mean, I think this idea was super creative, and you've got the white sands. I mean, what looks better than white and turquoise blue? I really like this idea. Yeah,
I do too. Okay, more boats. Tell us a little bit about this one. I think, is this the one that's in the Kimberleys?
Yeah, so this is the true north. These are the guys that were the real pioneers of this region. So, like one of the last true great wildernesses left on Earth. and they've built this special boat with a very low draft and with a helicopter. So, like they'll go out, even out up to 200 miles offshore, out to these remote atolls. But the tides here are like 13 meters. I think they're the second largest tides in the world. And if you go in April, May, straight after the monsoon, you've got incredible waterfalls like this where they just nudge straight up to them. They take you to ancient Aboriginal rock art sites. They take you to, incredible gorges, swimming holes. I mean, I've done this, and it's definitely
Worth it.
I mean, I just can't even describe it. I convinced one of my friends to do this recently. He's like, "What am I going to do, Drew?" I said, "If you haven't done this, go and do it." Now they've got it as their homepage on their Facebook, and they've become the biggest advocates. They're like, "That is the best thing I've done in the world,"
You know what? That's what life's about, right? You got to do these cool things. This is a photo up near Lizard Island, going out on a boat again. And now I love this next boat. This is a very cool boat you have. Tell us about this one.
This one's Spirit Luxury Charters, and they're on the Great Barrier Reef, and they just do an absolutely. This is a catamaran. That's why you see, for extra stability. But it comes with all the toys. But, they'll go out to Rain Island, for example, which is the largest green turtle rookery in the world, and where all the where they all, nest. And obviously, if it's a rookery, that's where they nest. But, they'll take you to hidden parts of the Great Barrier Reef, and you come back to your floating hotel. I mean, these guys, they're dive masters. They're, botanically, they know every plant. You go to the rainforest, you dive, you snorkel, you have incredible, beach barbecues, you see amazing wildlife. You go to untouched places. I mean, this is what these boats open up. I think it's so underestimated, cruising the Great Barrier Reef. If I could say to someone, what is the best way to do the Great Barrier Reef, I would definitely, if you've got a larger group, 8 to 10 people, it's no more, well, it's slightly more, but not a great deal, to rent a boat like this and stay at Lizard Island and just go to the best spots. I mean, you can get in. I mean, that's a great thing about the reef is you've got all these incredible anchorages, so you can get in behind the reef and it's always calm and yeah.
Well, anyone who's listened to the podcast before knows I'm a huge fan of boat charters. I love chartering catamarans for a family vacation. It's just an amazing experience to wake up one place, go somewhere for the afternoon, then go dock somewhere else for the night. And you get to see so much. You get to go places people will never get to go unless you're on a boat. And it's just an amazing way to travel with your family, with a couple couples. It's just so fun. So highly recommend. I agree with you. All right, we're going to quickly go through a few of these things, or I know you and I will be here for 4 hours. So obviously, if people want private jets, we've got private jets. We've got helicopters. I love this next photo. As far as fascinating people go, we talked about how important it is to connect with interesting people. And this guy just looks like a real classic Australian guy. Tell us a little bit about him.
Yeah, so this is Ian Farga, and he comes from a place called the Flinders Ranges in the northern part of South Australia, which is really, so it's about 500 kilometers north of Adelaide. And pilot, rancher, ecologist, these guys can do anything. One minute he'll be taking you on a hike, and the next minute you'll be in his plane mustering sheep from the mountains, and these people have been there for like 6 generations, that people just find it fascinating, like they want to meet people like this.
Yeah, I agree. All right, before we transition to talk about some of the gorgeous hotels and lodges throughout the country, I know you have a term, crazy and cool. Tell me at least 1 or 2 of your crazy and cool experiences we haven't talked about.
I mean, crazy and cool is the things that you would not normally do. So, for example, we've got a gentleman called Stuart O'Grady, who won a gold medal in cycling. He also won 17 stages of the Tour de France. And we have done a number of cycling trips with him. He is the race director of the Tour Down Under, which is Australia's version of the Tour d'Italia or the Tour de France. And so, people can go riding with him. And we've also organized people like Cadel Evans that won the Tour de France to go riding with him, one of the other things is you can go racing monster trucks in the outback with the gentleman that won the Paris to Dakar. Like, anything you can think of, we can put together. The ultimate four-wheel drive safari, a pop-up camp in the middle of the outback, whatever you can think of, we have done over the last 24 years.
I love it. Love, love, love it. Okay, so this is one of my favorite shots because it's of a ridiculously amazing view from the terrace at the Park Hyatt Hotel overlooking the Sydney Opera House. I know this is not an inexpensive room to rent. In general, would you say that the Park Hyatt has the best views of the Sydney Opera House, or are there other hotels that also have this good of a view?
I mean, undoubtedly, the Park Hyatt has the best location. But there's a new hotel that's just been completed called the Crown, which is directly behind it, maybe like half a mile. But because it's so elevated, the views are incredible and no expense was spared. But, in terms of a boutique hotel in an incredible location, the Park Hyatt is very hard to compete with. That's it right there. It's only 110 rooms.
Yeah, it's just beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. And you just get to watch what's going on in the water all day long, too.
And you're directly below the bridge as well.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You could see the bridge in the background over here. Very well located, that's for sure. Okay, now we're going to talk about the one and only for a second. So I love one and only hotels. I love their ethos. I love their vibe. I love everything about them. Why do you like the one and only in the Wolgan Valley?
Well, it's a great way to start a trip into Australia. So you can land in Sydney, you can jump on a helicopter, and within 45 minutes, you're at one and only Wolgan Valley, where you literally will see 1,000 kangaroos a day. And it's straight out of central casting for what you imagine Australia is going to be. So, it's a great way to start. Because all the flights arrive to Australia very early from the US, like 10 o'clock in the morning or 9:30, you're already there starting your holiday, right? Then you can slowly drive back through the Blue Mountains, spend 2 or 3 nights in Sydney, and then satellite out. But yeah, I think the wildlife and the views are what make one and only special. Of course, the accommodation is great as well. It just goes without saying when it comes to one and only.
And you have, beautiful picnics with views like this. You have stargazing. You have the kangaroos.
Horseback riding, mountain biking, hiking,
all that good stuff. All that good stuff. So highly recommended. And then this looks like it's actually like a golden hour sunset picture. Tell us a little bit about this one. Oh, this is actually the same one, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one and only. But I mean, it's in that beautiful valley. You can see that, the sun setting there, and, you've got that huge escarpment behind you. I mean, it's just a great shot that shows how beautiful it is. And you just see when people have, put the place into conservation, how many kangaroos there are. Like it is just beyond, like you will literally see 1,000 kangaroos in a day.
So fun. All right. The next one is equally beautiful and very romantic just by the shape of it, and owned by one of my favorite people in the hospitality industry, Richard Branson. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Well, Noosa and the Sunshine Coast region, this is obviously Makepeace Island, which I've been to. I've been lucky enough to be there probably 8 or 9 times, maybe 10. But Noosa is I don't know what you would call it, the Hamptons of Australia, maybe the Cape Cod. I don't know. It's just this hidden gem where no international tourists go. But imagine the most perfect climate, the most perfect white beaches, and the most beautiful scenery and tropical. This is what this place is like. So it's really close to a little town called Noosa, and it's this private island on the river. But they have this really high speed ribbed boat, like similar to the one we saw in the earlier photo with the whale next to it. And in 10 minutes you can be anywhere. And yeah, I mean, this place is just beautiful. Like the gardens, you cannot even imagine how it feels like you're in the rainforest.
And it's shaped like a heart. It's called Makepeace Island. It's owned by Richard Branson. The next time I am down in your area, I will absolutely be going there. It's just...
So if you just go north of here, it also has its own Everglades, almost like it's the second largest Everglades in the world after Florida. And they're just so different to what you see in Florida, but just
so beautiful
again.
And from this island, you're not just staying on this island when you're staying there. You're going out and about, going mountain biking. You can go golfing. Like there's access to so many amazing, active, outdoorsy things to do. So
yeah, probably the best outdoor market in Australia is very close. They have incredible cooking schools, treatments. The treatments are just to die for in that region, spa treatments.
Awesome. This is an inside view looking out of Lizard Island, which we touched on before. And the next one is one of my favorite photos I collect great bathtub photos with a good view. And this is definitely one of them. Tell us a little bit about where this is.
This is on a beautiful beach called Island Beach on Kangaroo Island. And it's a property called One Kangaroo Island. Imagine the most turquoise, untouched beach. I mean, we have so many of them in Australia just because our population is so low. And yeah, I mean, I just love this property. They never put a foot wrong, and the service is fantastic, and the food, obviously being on Kangaroo Island, is sensational. I mean, Kangaroo Island's a lot bigger than people realize. It's the third largest island off of Australia, so it's about 90 miles long by 50 miles wide, so it's big.
This is pretty big. And I know this is one of your favorites down in Tasmania, and I think it's reason enough to go to Tasmania.
I think you're right. I mean, this is a 20-suite lodge called Sapphire, Saffire. And I would say it is the number one lodge in Australia right now. Like, just in terms of service, food, fit out, they do a good job, like really cool job. One of their favorite things is you go and shuck oysters straight from the ocean and sip champagne while you're shucking the oysters.
So amazing. I did that in Croatia in October, and it was fabulous. So I'm a fan. Happy to do it in different parts of the world. Okay, so the red, you could see, if you could see this photo, if you're watching, you can see the red dust of the earth, right, where they are. Tell us a little bit more about where this is.
So this is in the sand dunes adjacent to Ayers Rock / Uluru. So this is longitude 131, which is part of the Bailey Lodges portfolio. And you have to say everything that the Bailey Lodges do is top of the line, first class. So they really know how to do great hospitality, food, wine, experiences. Yeah, they've done a really, really good job.
Beautiful. So if you want to go out and see Ayers Rock, this is definitely the place to stay.
Yeah, this is the only place I would be going, yeah.
So most of us know about the fires that happened in Australia a couple years ago, and you guys lost one of your most iconic properties, Southern Ocean Lodge, and this is a photo of it from before. Can you give us an update on, I know they're rebuilding, what's the status, and are they rebuilding exactly the way it was, or are they changing things?
So I actually was lucky enough to have a coffee. Well, he came into our office, the CEO, Craig, on Tuesday morning. So he gave me an update. And the great news is that Southern Ocean Lodge, it's slated Mark II, is slated to come to life and be finished in June 23. So that's only just over 18 months away. So yeah, they've made it's very similar, but they're going to have a big private 4-bedroom villa now. They're also going to do slightly larger rooms, a bathroom in every room. They're going to add hot and cool plunge pools at the back. So, they're really taking it to the next level. So that's the picture there. It'll be very similar, but anything that they missed, they are incorporating into the new design. And I know that, Sapphire and Southern Ocean Lodge, up until when Southern Ocean Lodge burnt down a couple of years ago, were the absolute two standout properties in Australia. So they're very, very keen for this to be, again, number one in Australia. So I would say that, they have high aspirations. So I think they'll probably achieve it.
I can't wait. I think I'm going to wait to come just for that reason.
Yeah.
So then you have even remote, this one you call an Outback Station. Tell us a little bit about these very remote places.
So this one is in northern South Australia. This is the Flinders Ranges, and you can see the Elder Range behind. The big thing is you call properties like this ranches, we call them stations. So a station, so this one is probably 60,000 acres, which is very small by Australian standards. But the gentleman who owns this has completely removed all the sheep and he's put it all back to wildlife conservation. So absolutely incredible. They hadn't seen some species there for 20, 30 years. And now they're seeing, echidnas, and they're seeing possums and like species like that haven't been seen there in decades, just by removing the rabbits, the feral cats, the foxes, and things of that nature.
Okay. And
there's El Questro Homestead in the Kimberley, absolutely stunning on the Chamberlain Gorge.
Love it. Looks beautiful. Private islands.
Yeah, so this is the ultimate Robinson Crusoe Island in the very north of the Great Barrier Reef.
Yeah, who wouldn't want to stay there? And so is this like a buyout situation, this island, or you can rent individual rooms?
You can rent individual rooms, but they only have 5 rooms.
Okay, not many. And villas, there's obviously.
Yeah, we do. Villas. This one's up at Noosa, the one near Richard Branson's place, and overlooking the ocean. Yeah.
Stunning. All right. You've told us many of your favorites already in terms of lots of different categories, but I'm going to dive into a few more. The food in Australia is beautiful. I know there is no Michelin guide and Michelin stars in Australia, but that doesn't mean that there aren't Michelin deserving chefs in Australia, and they make absolutely stunning dishes. You can have that, and then you could range all the way to the other end where you're having a barbecue in the backyard. You want to give us a little insight into a few of these photos?
Yeah, so this first one's at Mr. Chow's, which is a fantastic, incredible restaurant in Sydney. This one, the next one down where you've got the meringue on fire is a place called Fire Door, where everything is cooked over open flame, every single ingredient, like the only place in the world. This other one's called the Coogee Pavilion, which is the ultimate sort of beach dining one. And then there's the other one is Sarah Glover, who again cooks everything over fire, who is a fantastic chef. But she goes out and spends the day hunting and gathering with you. And then you come back and cook everything that you've, gathered during the day, from abalone to lobster to, I don't know, whatever it might be, mussels. And you cook it all over an open fire. I mean, we just get rave reviews about her. Wow. But, one of the things we can do is we are very, very well connected. So to probably all the top restaurants. We can call them at any time and get access to them pretty much, right?
And we love
Which
that.
is no one else can do. You know, it's taken us 20 years to be able to make that phone call.
Yeah. Well, I love having partners like you who could do that for me. This is such a beautiful picture from Nomad. I have a couple of restaurants on my list after getting ready for today, and one of them is Nomad. And I definitely want to go to Benelong too, which is this is the photo of the restaurant that Drew was referring to earlier that is in the Sydney Opera House. Stunning views. And then this one, which I showed Drew. He's not had it yet, but the crepe cake at Esther. I mean, you look at this and you're like, okay, no, it's not healthy, but I'm sure it's worth every single bite.
Yeah. So, I mean, you know, one of the things that people, this is one of the big comments we get back from guests was, I didn't know that the food in Australia and the wine would be so good. They're like, I just never even thought about it, but it was absolutely outstanding. You know, I mean, I've heard that for 20 odd years since I've been doing this business.
And you know what's crazy is what draws people to Australia, you know, a lot of people, Great Barrier Reef, Sydney, the animals, but then to have the surprise of, you know, all these amazing people to meet, eating amazing food like this, going to those wineries, like you're going to leave there with so much more than you even thought you're going to, you know, do while you're there. So it's a place that's worth making that big trip around the world for us Americans.
I mean, it's very interesting because I spent, you know, almost 3 years doing safari, and, you know, that was my basis. I want people to have the same wonder and awe that I felt when I went on that first safari, right? Of just mind blowing, expanding like I just never imagined, right? And it just being so much better than you. Like, that's what I want people to experience in Australia. And I mean, I was very lucky in Africa that I was with my friends who were like, you know, fourth and fifth generation Kenyans, right? And I want to give that same experience to people, you know, when they come to Australia. And you know, I don't want them saying safari's better either. I'm biased. I want them to say Australia was incredible.
They're just different, you know? Yeah. Right. I think safari, everybody says it, you leave there and it stays with the fabric of who you are. And I would argue that Australia could have as equally as large of an impact.
Yeah, no, I agree. So just to finish up, the big four for first time visitors. This is my own creation, right? Like, I was like, okay, if I didn't know anything about you, right? Like zero. And I just had to use my experience to build something that I thought people would love, I would go with these four things. I would put it in Sydney. I would make sure you go and stay on an island like Lizard so you can see the best of the Great Barrier Reef. I want you to see the red dirt or the remoteness of the outback so you can feel that wilderness, right? You know, you feel that. And I want to make sure that you see koalas, you see kangaroos, you see echidnas, all those things in the wildlife, right? But in an untouched environment. Mm-hmm. I mean, we can deliver this experience 100 different ways, you know, depending on what you like and what you don't like. For example, you could stay on an island on the Great Barrier Reef, you can stay on a boat, you can visit for the day, you can fly to a sand cay on a helicopter and snorkel. Like, there's 100 different ways you can do it. But, you know, I mean, I know that we're going to finish up, but I just wanted to personally say thank you to you for the opportunity today to, you know, chat with you and talk about, you know, what Trouvé Travel offers and, you know, your expertise. And thank you so much for inviting me into your world to chat.
Well, you're so sweet. I appreciate that you came on to share your love and passion for your beautiful country. You know, the amount and breadth of experiences and people and connections you have, and the knowledge from going to see all these hotels all the time, you know, routinely, so you know they're staying up to standards. It's just tremendous wealth that I get to draw upon. So I appreciate it very much, and thank you for coming on and spending your time with me.
No worries, and sorry for going 9, maybe like 14 minutes over. So
No worries. I knew we would go over it. Honestly, we could again talk about it for 4 hours. So you can't fit a square peg into a round hole. You can't talk about Australia for less than an hour. It's just not possible.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, and
Of
really
course.
appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Well, thank you. And we will be in touch hopefully when, you know, everybody, the world cooperates. The Americans are coming back to Australia.
Look forward to that day very soon.